Hello and welcome to my January reading wrap up. Hey, hello, this is my first wrap up, and I'm going to talk to you about the 5 books I read this month. I think, in comparison to a lot of BookTube people on here, that's probably not a lot, but unfortunately, that's usually the amount I read, if not a little less. I would say my like monthly goal is to try to read 4 books. So I'm actually beating it by one, although I know it's lower than some other people. But I do want to try to read a little bit more if I can. I really enjoyed reading 5 books this month, um, and hopefully I can maybe continue that or grow that number a little bit more even. However, I know next month is a shorter month, so we'll see about that. And I also have to say that this was definitely a really busy month for me. And so a lot of these are audiobooks, which I feel like I do consume a lot of books on audio formatting because I can listen to them during work. I can listen to them when I do chores or when I'm taking public transport. I have really bad motion sickness. So reading on the bus physically is not always an option for me. So, yes, that is my main format. I do love reading on my Kindle and on like just physical books, so I'd love to try to get into that more as well. But yeah, with that being said, let's discuss the 5 books I read this month. The first book I read is Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. This is a thriller following Jet, our main character, who, after a brutal attack that caused her a head injury, she now only has 7 days left to live, and she is on the hunt for who killed her. This is Holly Jackson's, I believe, her first adult novel. She usually is a YA thriller author, which I've really enjoyed some of her YA thrillers, specifically A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I loved that series. Thought it was really good. And I even like the TV show so far. I don't know if they're going to be doing a second season of that, but I think I would definitely watch. Yes, this one was definitely really fun. I will say I'm looking at my, I gave it a 4 star, which is pretty good. I think I did like it. I think this is a really unique premise, like trying to find your own killer. Um, because essentially she's not dead yet, but she knows she's eventually going to die. It's really interesting, and that's definitely what pulled me in. And I think it did a good job of capturing my attention. I will say I don't think it is still on par with the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. There's just something about that where the suspense was just so good and interesting and felt very like intimate in a way. Like it felt like the story felt very real and the characters felt very real in a way that she definitely emulated still in this one, but not as much, I will say. I felt not as attached to the characters, and some of them were, I think, a little too, I don't know. Their motivations just didn't feel realistic to me. To be fair, some of them were a little cuckoo crazy, so maybe that's why I couldn't relate. But I was just not as connected to the characters, and I feel like that is why I didn't like it as much as I could have. But in terms of thriller, it was pretty good. It had all the trademarks of a fun mystery. Oh, there was definitely a few frustrating parts throughout, which I think always happens in thrillers. But overall, I did like this one. And not only did I like this, but it fulfilled my challenge that I'm doing this year. I'm doing participating in the Books and Lala's Buzzword Challenge for the cover and title. This fulfills the cover challenge of an internal body part. I always forget the exact wording, but this cover has where do I put it? Has a like CT scan of a skull, like showing her fracture. So I am officially checking that off for the month of January, completing that challenge. Pretty excited about that. Just some stats on this. I kind of want to maybe keep a running stats for my wrap ups just because I think it's kind of interesting to like look back on. This book was 392 pages. It was a thriller and I listened to it on audiobook format. After that, I was still very much in a mystery thriller mood. I think this month was a little bit difficult for me. I had a lot going on. I have a lot of birthdays in January, including mine, my boyfriend's, and my mom's, and one of my best friends. So they're all really fun and amazing birthdays, but it does get a little hectic. So I definitely just wanted something that was capturing my attention and fast paced and interesting. Unfortunately, I feel like this month was not a big like broadening my horizons month, which is something I definitely want to do moving forward in the year, like to expand my reading taste a little bit. But this month I do feel like I played it pretty safe, because of the because of all of my events and being somewhat busy. With that being said, like I said, I wanted to jump into another thriller right away just to keep the momentum going and not fall into a slump. I, however, did not choose the best book for this. The next book I read was Spider to the Fly by, I believe, J.H. Marquette, who wrote another book that I actually enjoyed called Sleep Tight. This one, however, was just not my favorite. It was not. Oh my gosh. It was silly. It was a bad plot. I gave this 1 star. I would have given it less. I would have maybe just not rated it because you can't give 0 stars. Um, it was not good. The plot was ridiculous. It was so far-fetched. It was, if anyone has ever watched Pretty Little Liars, I am a huge Pretty Little Liars fan. I rewatch it all the time. That show though is objectively ridiculous, and the plot was giving a bad episode of Pretty Little Liars. It was actually specifically giving, this is a spoiler for Pretty Liars and I guess this book, the one where Spencer finds out she has an evil twin, an evil British twin. That was essentially the entire plot of this book, and I was just not a fan. It didn't make sense. It wasn't even that interesting because it didn't make sense, and so I like didn't care about it. And also the writing and the dialogue were so weird and strange, and I don't remember the other book being like that. So I'm not quite sure what what happened in this book to make it so different. I would just have to say that there was a part of the dialogue where these two characters were on a run. They didn't really know each other, but they had already met. And then the main girl character, sorry, reintroduced herself to the guy and was like, "Hey, my name's whatever." And he's like, "Oh yeah, like we met a few days ago, but like yeah, my name's whatever. I'm adopted." What? Literally what? Even the main female character is like, or he goes, "Are you surprised I'm adopted?" And she's like, "No, I'm just surprised you told me like that." And I'm like, "Me too, girl. Why?" I'm sorry. I mean, that just feels such an unnatural place to just be like, "Oh, by the way, I'm adopted." Like, no prefacing. And that's another thing is like, everyone in this book is also adopted. Everyone has an evil twin, or an identical twin. I'm like, what are even the statistics of this many identical twins in one state? It was too much. It was too much silliness. But anyways, I will stop lamenting about that. Anyways, that was so stats on this. It was 352 pages, and it was another thriller, and it was also on audiobook. I have a book that saved me from my slump. This is another thriller. It was a really thriller heavy month, so apologies. But this was After That Night, by Karen Slaughter. This is, like I said, another thriller. And this was amazing. Thank God. Thank God, because I was a little worried there for a second. I must note that this is the 11th book in a series, but it's one of those like detective series where I don't think you necessarily have to read every single one in order. It's like almost like a Criminal Minds episode where there's like a different case, like a lot of the recurring characters, you know. I chose this one specifically because this fulfills my second buzzword reading challenge. This is for the buzzword title challenge, and it is either a book that has before or after in the title. This is After That Night, so it fulfills that challenge, and I'm officially completed for my January buzzword challenge, which I'm really happy about. I'm really excited to participate in this, and I think it's going to be fun to like try to find books that fit the challenges. So I'm very happy that I knocked them both out. Anyways, this is as I said, it was 11 in a series. The detective's name is Will Trent. And that's like the whole series is like the Will Trent detective series, I guess. This one was really, really good, insane plot that, in my opinion, was made more sense. Not to shade anybody, but made more sense, like came together in a way that I'm like, okay, yeah. I mean, it was still literally batshit crazy, but I'm like, okay, the pieces fell together in a way that I was like, yeah, okay. I will say, if you're into thrillers and this is something you want to check out, please check trigger warnings. This is heavy on sexual assault, and they are Graphic, yeah, I might say graphic. I mean, there's discussions about it in a way that's medical because the main character is um, a doctor, so she talks about it in a very medical sense. But she's also been through it, and they talk about her assault. They talk about some of the other assaults. It's graphic and it can be upsetting. So just a fair warning. The story is very interesting, though. It's about our main female character, Sarah. She works as a doctor, and one day in the ER, a patient comes through after she's been attacked. And the last thing she says is basically, find the man who hurt me, make sure he gets in trouble. And Sarah plans on doing that. She basically figures out who it is and is one of the key witnesses for the case against him. However, she's also realizing that this case might have some similarities, some connections to her own assault 15 years previously. Very insane plot, action packed, crazy thriller, crazy conspiracies. So if you're in a slump, I think this will definitely keep you engaged. And for the stats, this was 432 pages. It was a thriller and it was also on audiobook. And I don't know if I said I gave this, but I gave this 5 stars. Okay, the next one I have is Blood on Her Tongue by Johanna Van Veen. I gave this 3 stars and it's like a gothic horror. I really loved the setting of this. This is about two sisters, two twin sisters, Lucy and Sarah. And Sarah, I think they call her Sarah in the book, is living with her husband like on a different estate. So they no longer live together. And one day, they find a bog body on their property, and Sarah gets very invested in the bog body and who it is. And after they discover it, she becomes ill and starts having strange cravings and maybe a thirst for blood. This was, as you might be able to tell, a vampire gothic, which I loved that. I loved the setting was awesome. Like this haunted like manor, like whatever estate. It's like kind of like fancy, but there's like I love when you can see like the cracks of things. So that like they would describe like it was really wet there. Like it was a very like wet environment. So like the mirrors and like some of the furniture would like have mold because they couldn't keep the like moistness, I guess, from coming inside. And I love that imagery. I love that idea of like slow decay. And I think that definitely reflected in, our character, Sarah. I really thought the first half of the book was really good, very grabbing my attention. I liked the horror aspects. I liked the body horror. I liked these like vampire like nods. And then I think, unfortunately, the second half did just kind of disappoint me a little bit. To me, it felt like none of the characters grew past any of their like stereotypical mold of who they were like supposed to be. And that was just a bummer. Like, yeah, and it just that for me kind of killed it. And I feel like the horror in the second part too was just like it was like less mysterious, less this like eerie, like unsettling feeling, and more just almost like a I don't know, not generic, but it was kind of generic, kind of stereotypical, and it didn't there was nothing that like really like I was losing interest halfway through. I was kind of honestly struggling through the last few chapters and kind of just trying to finish it. And there was parts of it that I found like the character choices were unrealistic. I don't want to say too much for spoilers, but it was that thing where like they would say one thing in one chapter and be so dedicated and be so dead set on it, and then a few chapters later they would totally switch up and do the thing that they would said they would never do. And it's like, okay, so where are your character like who are you as a character if you're switching up like that? And there's also a lot of I did think that there was an aspect kind of that they were like slightly toying with the idea of what makes us human, and is it just our consciousness? Does it matter like if you've been altered and changed, if you have all the same memories, or are you a different being because something you went through a transformation, and although you have all these new memories, you're totally changed being. You know what I mean? I'm trying not to get too spoilery, But yeah, which I thought was very interesting. But then again, I was like, I don't know if the choices they made regarding that made sense for the characters. It felt like again, it was so quick that they would say one thing and then they would switch up that I'm like, okay. So why are we even making these big claims if you're just going to switch up? I will say if you liked Carmilla, if you liked Dracula, these definitely have some elements. I think it's Carmilla. I haven't actually read Dracula yet. I've read Carmilla. It was kind of similar to Carmilla in a few senses and definitely elevated some of those things, the like gore, the blood, not as much as the relationship, but there was some discussions of like some sapphic romance in this. I don't even want to say that because it also kind of felt so light and not so underdeveloped and underexplored. But there were. So if you're interested in that. Stats on this, it was 368 pages, Gothic horror, and it was also an audiobook. And this leads me to my final book of the month, which I actually do have a physical copy of, and I did read this physically. This is a Dungeon Crawler Carl. Let me move my hand so you can see it. Yes, this is a sci-fi book, I believe. And I loved this one. I gave this one a 4.5. Yeah, this one's just so fun. I really liked it. This, I think, is definitely the only instance this month where I really explored outside of my usual genre. I don't really read sci-fi. Um, and I'm so glad I did. This was awesome. This is about a man named Carl who, after an alien invasion and the destruction of all man-made structures on Earth, he is forced to join a um, intergalactic competitive game show where they are basically fighting for their lives to go through different levels of this game show in the hopes that they might, I think they get to like retrieve everything they lost at the final level. But it's extremely difficult and it's set up like a video game. So they're fighting like they're doing like boss fights, they have level ups, they have inventory, they have all these things. Oh, and of course, can't forget to mention, he is stuck there with his ex-girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut, and I love her. I think she's so cute, and I think that if I had to join an intergalactic game show competition, I would also bring my cat, and I would honestly, it might make everything fine if I got to bring my cat. So, yes, I love this one. I think it was really fun. I think there were some parts. I think this is why I gave it a 4.5. I think there were some parts that kind of went over my head because I am pretty much the last person on earth to play a video game. I'm really not a gamer girl. I wish I was. It seems fun. I'm just like very much not. I literally like there was moments throughout where I'm like I feel like I should text my brother and be like, "What does this mean?" Um but yeah. But other than that, I mean, and that's a very small factor. But it was really fun. It was, I would say, pretty action packed. I think some of it got a little like convoluted where I'm like, "Okay, I don't need to know this. I think we just need to get back to the action," which I don't know what that says about me, but super fun. I think this is like so funny, and there was literally times where I was like laughing out loud. I love the humor. It's really like relatable. Like obviously he's from Earth, and it's a modern day Earth, so there's just like references and some funny things that I'm like, wow, that's like it's just so funny to see in this context. It makes me think like, what would it be like if I weren't there? Probably I'd be dead, to be so real. But whatever. But it's just like really funny. It's really sweet. There's moments where it's really sweet. Like Carl is a very caring person. Like he's like an ex-Marine. There's just times where you see him very much like care about the others in this game where it's really like kind of everyone for themselves, really. And caring so much about Princess Donut. I do, even though that some of the game stuff doesn't fully resonate with me, I really like it. I think it's just such a unique, fun plot. And I love the like different, like there's different creatures, like different like goblins that they have to fight, and like mob bosses or whatever they're called, boss fights, I guess. And it's got some funny like commentary about Earth too. Like the whole thing is that the aliens don't know anything about Earth until they basically get like a historical context a few years in advance of the game. Um, and so they like, and then they insert certain aspects of like Earth culture into the game, which is really funny and random to see. And then underlying, there's this kind of like sad and also very scary like plot line because they don't want to be here. It's essentially kind of like space Hunger Games. Everyone's like fighting to the death. And there's a lot of people affected by the games. And it's not just the people who are put in there, but it's also maybe the monsters and it's also the people, the guild trainers. And there's just like a lot of it seems like a lot of control and authoritarian situation happening. Um, so yeah, I think it's really interesting. I did not realize when I picked this up. I think it is part of a huge series, which I think makes a lot of sense. But that is slightly intimidating. But I literally need to find out what Princess Donut and Carl do. So I'll have to pick up the next one. And then for the stats on this one, it was 466 pages. Sci-fi, I believe, is the genre, and I read this physically. Those are all five of the books I read in January. For my conclusionary stats, I read a total of 2,010 pages. My top genre was thriller. My average rating was 3.5, and I achieved my Books and Lala Buzzword Reading Challenge, both of them for January. So I'm very excited about that. I'm also really happy I read what to me is an extra book, and I'm really hoping that I can maybe continue that pace and read another book next month. Again, we'll see because it's a shorter month, but I'm also very excited to start my TBR for next month. I have a fun video coming out about that soon. And that's all. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.